In this Clair Obscure Expedition 33 review, I'm going to be talking about my hands-on time with the game. I finished the game about a week and a half ago, and just after I finished the game, I actually flew to London to celebrate the launch of this title with Sandfall Interactive and some of the cast of the game, including Jennifer English, Ben Starr, and Andy Serkis, which was amazing. But I want to talk about this game. This game took me about 50 hours to play through or so, give or take a little bit, depending on, how good you are and what difficulty you're playing on. But this might absolutely be my favorite game of the year so far, and that's saying a lot considering I've played games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, the recently first Berserker Khazan, and of course Avowed as well. A lot of good games have already come out this year. I think this one might be my favorite so far. So let's talk about the story and setting first. The story and setting of Clair Obscure Expedition 33 is probably one of the most interesting things, if not the most interesting thing about the game. Clair Obscur, by the way, is a French art term that refers to the contrast between light and dark in pieces of art, and it's definitely a theme throughout this game. But essentially, without going into spoilers, of course, just the setup of this story, which you will find out very early on once you start playing, it's about people who live in a world where every year people are dying at a younger and younger age. A mysterious figure paints a number on a faraway giant tower every year that goes lower and instantly gamages anyone who is older than the painted age, causing them to devolve into flower petals and disappear into the winds, never to be seen again. You play as a band of characters that have been training to spend the last year of their life to go on an expedition to the continent, which is a mysterious place across the sea where this tower and paintress are located, in an effort to finish what previous expeditions could not, and stop the paintress once and for all and end the cycle of endless gamages. There are many mysteries in Clair Obscure Expedition 33, and figuring them out is a part of the process, and as you become more and more entangled in the game's plot, you not only begin to understand the seemingly confusing motivations of many of the game's characters, but you also get a deeper look into what it means to be human. I found the story of Clair Obscure Expedition 33 resonated with me a lot personally. It's a tale of tragedy, hope, perseverance, trust, and ultimately the bonds that tie us all together as human beings. In a time where people are more divided than ever, it was a good reflection for me to take a look at what's really important about life, and that's usually the closest people to your friends and family and how much they mean to you. I lost my mother to cancer last June, so about 10 months ago or so, and I didn't understand at the time what an impact it would have on me, and it's still impacting my life today in ways that I still don't completely understand, that flare up in the most strange times possible. And I think that's one of the reasons that this game really spoke to me, is it touched upon subjects like this, and I think it will really resonate with people out there that have had similar experiences, and I think they will probably get something more out of this than people that haven't had stuff like that happen to them. And the cast of characters in Expedition 33 are absolutely fantastic as well. I felt like I connected and bonded with just about every single one of them, if not all of them, in some way. And they're written in a way that they're complex, they have layers to them, and it felt like you could really empathize with a lot of their situations. And I found myself wanting to bring them all with me all the time, but you can only have 3 players, out in the game during the gameplay segments at a time. However, during cutscenes and things, they all appear for those, so you don't really miss out on that. But I really wanted them all to be with me the whole time, which is a huge departure from other games out there that I have played recently. Even in Avowed, I really liked a couple characters and didn't like other characters. Coming from Dragon Age, where I basically didn't like any of the companions that they had, to being able to like just about everyone in this, it takes me back to the days of the Knights of the Old Republic, where there were so many good characters, you didn't know which ones you wanted to bring. And they're all just really, really well done in this game, and that was so refreshing. And there's also quite a bit of humor in this game. It does kind of have a dark tone underlying everything, but there is also a very good humorous element in this game. And I did feel like the developers have both a good sense of understanding of life and humor. So it's not like it's all dark and dreary either. There are a lot of fun, funny moments in this title. So moving along from the story and setting to the gameplay is kind of broken up into 3 segments, I would say. You have exploration of the game's overworld map, which is kind of its own thing. You have the level design of each level that you move through, or location rather, the locations that you're in, the flow of those, and then the combat in between, the flow of the levels and on the world map. So the exploration on the world map I found absolutely fascinating. I really like the way that it's designed. It's designed in a way where like you unlock more and more abilities that will allow you to have access to more and more areas. So as you progress the game, you'll be able to go back and see things that you weren't able to see before in certain locations and have access to new locations you couldn't access. And I really enjoyed exploring the world map and finding all the things on it. It was always fun when I completed like a main story area and then had access to a new part of the map. It's not truly open world in the sense that like you can't go anywhere at any point in the game. You have to unlock areas. Kind of reminded me of like the old Final Fantasy games where, you know, more and more of the world map becomes available to you as you progress the main storyline. And as far as the level designs go, aesthetically, I really like the way they look visually and art design wise. They're absolutely fascinating. And for the most part, I think they were really well done. Like the exploration was a key consideration for me. I felt like it was, based on the demo, it was kind of minimal, but there are some areas of the game that have absolutely fantastic exploration. But I would say it's kind of hit or miss. Some areas are really, really good in terms of exploration, and some areas are very, very simple. And, you know, like you can predict just about where you need to go and where every item is. So I wish there had been a little bit more effort put in here on certain places. But overall, I think they did a really, really good job on exploration. And when it comes to combat, combat is probably one of the more unique things of the game, considering that it is a turn-based game where each character has their own mechanics and abilities, but then you also have real-time mechanics like dodging, parrying, jumping, and then a different type of counterattack called a gradient counter. So you basically have 4 defensive actions that you can do, and then all the skills and regular attacks you can do in combat. So there's a variety of things that you can do, and there is a very good enemy variety in the game. Like there are so many different enemies that it mixes it up a lot. And I had just a ton of fun with the combat of this game. I think whether you're a turn-based player or a real-time player, you're really, really going to enjoy this. And you can tweak the difficulty to kind of skew yourself more one way than the other. Like if you're more of a turn-based player and don't have good reflexes, you can go on easier difficulties. And if you're more like a Souls player or someone who plays a lot of hardcore action RPGs like the first Berserker Khazan, you can put it on harder difficulty and really, you know, ramp up the challenge. I would say there are only 2 real issues I have with combat, though, which you don't really notice until the very end of the game, by the way. So it's not like this is a problem throughout most of the game. But the last 10 to 15 hours, we're kind of doing the end game, if you will. You start to notice that the enemies of the game, even though there's a large variety of them, only have like 2 attacks each, or maybe 3 attacks in some cases, except for like super unique bosses and things like that. And they become sort of, a lot of these enemies you fought throughout the game sort of become mini bosses with huge health pools. And this is where you start to really see that they only have a couple of attacks, because they'll do attack A, and then attack B, and then attack A, and then attack B, and then attack A, and attack B for like 20 turns in a row. And it starts to get a little bit repetitive at that point, because there just isn't a variety of attacks. Whereas when there was one of each enemy on the screen, you had all these different attacks going off, so it didn't feel like that. And additionally, I do feel like the game relies a little bit too much on parrying compared to the other defensive mechanics than it does on like dodging, for instance, or jumping, or even the gradient counterattacks. Like they do use them a bit, but dodging, for instance, is just not as rewarding as parrying, because parrying allows you to do a counterattack which punishes the enemy. You get damage on them, you can heal yourself with them, you can trigger effects on counterattack, you build up the enemy's break bar when you counterattack, but dodging doesn't do any of that. So you're sort of pushed or encouraged to parry a lot in this game, and you will parry a lot. And I felt like maybe they should have mixed in some of the other mechanics a little bit more, just to mix it up a bit more. Besides these things, there is also mini games, which I forgot to mention a second ago. And the mini games are kind of a nice break from the exploration and combat, and they kind of show you the fun side of the developers a little bit. And I will say I like the idea of these being in the game, but the mini games themselves, I didn't really enjoy that much. Like they're kind of, most of them are okay, but they were kind of frustrating to some degree. And in terms of like the sort of mini games you're going to experience, like there's like some parkour, there is like kind of like a tennis match, if you will, and there are a couple other things like that. And I like the idea of them, but in practice I found them very, very frustrating often, because like they're a little bit clunky and hard to pull off. But generally I found them more fun than not. Moving along to the audio, visual, and design of the game, we'll talk about graphics first. The graphics of the game are absolutely fantastic. I don't know if they're the best in the industry, but they are close. They are really, really good. The cinematics of the game, absolutely fantastic. The way the world looks, the vibe of the world, the art style, the art direction, and animations are over the top. I mean, this game, when you first look at it, looks like a AAA game. Like, it could be a AAA game, honestly. It should be. It's that good in terms of production value graphically. The only real blips for me on the graphics side were there were a few stutters in some zones, and they definitely kind of used motion blur or some sort of blurring on the world map like a lot in order to prevent frame drops. And sometimes things would be blurry for you, like, well, they were right in front of you, and it kind of made me like wonder if I was like losing my vision a little bit. But generally speaking, graphically, the game runs really, really well. I was getting 60 FPS or higher at 4K on a 3080 Ti and a 12900K processor pretty much the entire game with a couple of exceptions. And when it comes to audio in the audio of the game is almost a 10 out of 10. And I'll get into why it's almost a 10 out of 10, but it's so good. The voice acting has some of the best voice actors in the industry doing it, and especially some up-and-coming ones like Jennifer English and Ben Starr, who I mentioned earlier. Andy Serkis is absolutely phenomenal, and there are other voice actors as well. I don't want to go through the whole list, but the voice acting in this game is some of the best, if not at the best caliber that you will find in a video game. It definitely sets the standard, or is at the standard. And when it comes to music, the music of the game is absolutely amazing as well. There are just so many good songs in this game. It absolutely made the journey for me. Like, it elicits emotion in you. It's action-packed. It fits every single second wherever you are. It absolutely fits with what you're doing, and it's absolutely phenomenal. The sound effects of the game are also incredibly well done, and they're really good in just about every area of the game. The one gripe I have about audio is that I had some sort of audio bug, I think, the last 10 to 15 hours of the game, where I kept hearing like the same sound. It sounded like a boulder rolling behind me over and over, like every zone that I was in. And I don't know if it was like the ambient sound of that zone, but it was the exact same sound in all the zones, so it made me think it was a bug. And it started to get irritating after a while because nothing was happening around me, but it sounded like I was going to be crushed by a boulder. It's funny, but it's true. And I already touched on performance, but I had 0 crashes the whole time I played this game. I didn't have a single one. And I had almost no bugs. I think the couple bugs I had were like, I jumped somewhere and got stuck, and I had to reload an earlier save to get unstuck. That was it. Like, I had nothing else really happen bug-wise. This is an extremely polished game, and I don't expect these things to be a problem for anyone. So with regard to replayability and game length, as I mentioned earlier, this game took me about 50 hours to finish or so. Still feel like there's a few hours left in the game of things left to explore that I've missed, because there's a lot of places you can go earlier on that have mechanics to unlock things that from places you've already been, so I haven't done all of that. But I think your mileage is going to vary a little bit, but it's going to be somewhere in the 50-hour range. Even though there is a New Game Plus for this that you can play, and you do get new loot and rewards. I'm not exactly sure what all of they are. I don't feel like too many people are going to play it a second time. Some people might if they really, really enjoy the game and want to play it again, but like there aren't a lot of decisions to make in this game. So you're going to be going through the world again, basically just for the loot and whatever those rewards are. So there is that there as well, but I just don't know how many people will probably take advantage of that. And then talking about the price point, kind of piggybacking off this game right now is $45 on Steam on sale through May 2nd. Otherwise, it's $49.99. That is a very good price for this game. That's a very, very good price. And also, the game is day one on Game Pass. So if you'd rather just pay for Game Pass, what is it, like $17 or something like that, and play, or if you have Game Pass already, it's going to cost you nothing. So this is such a great value on Game Pass. And even on Steam, it's not bad. I think PlayStation, it's still like $55 or $60 or something like that. So PlayStation's the worst in terms of price point. But for what I played on, which was PC, it's about $45 right now. And that is a steal for how good this game is. It's so good, in my opinion. And yeah, it's not bad at all. So final thoughts on this game. Clair Obscure Expedition 33 it's a rare game. It took me back to the golden age of gaming where people had artistic vision, technical know-how, excellent writing, kind of wrapped inside solid combat that delivers like a total package experience. The closest thing in my head when I think back to a game like this is something like Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played all the Final Fantasy games after Final Fantasy VII, so someone might compare it to other Final Fantasy games. But it reminds me a lot of my experience playing Final Fantasy VII, the way I felt playing that game. You know, now as a grown-up, as a bit more mature, but that's kind of the level that this game quality is on. If I could compare it to one game, that would be the game that I would compare it to. There are very few games today that I can recommend to everyone, because they're either story-focused or too story-focused. Like, for instance, Kingdom Come Deliverance is much more story-focused than a lot of people would prefer. I mean, it does have other things to it, but it's a very story-driven game, and not everyone enjoys story-driven games. Or some games are very combat-focused. For instance, the first Berserker Khazan is almost exclusively combat-focused, and some people like to have a good story with their combat. Monster Hunter Wilds is the same thing. The story is there, yes, but no one's playing Monster Hunter Wilds for the story, except that one guy. They're playing it for the combat, so I can't recommend Monster Hunter Wilds to anyone. But Clair Obscure Expedition 33 has what I believe something for everyone. No matter what sort of player you are, you will enjoy this game, and I simply can't say that about other games that I have played this year. Clair Obscure Expedition 33 may very well win Game of the Year, and may do so with a staff of under 50 people, proving that passion, dedication, talent, and a clear vision are far more important than a large marketing budget, scores and scores of writers and tech personnel, and a big brand to rely on. I can't wait to see what's next from Sandfall Interactive, and hope it looks a lot like Clair Obscure Expedition 33.